now I'd like to introduce Warren K. Carlyle IV, octopus expert, and the force behind Octonation, the world's largest octopus fan club, which I think is undisputed title for sure. Octonation is huge. If you have uh, heard of octopuses on the internet and searched any question about octopuses, I can almost guarantee that Octonation is going to be one of the first search results with great, reliable, and accessible information about octopuses. Warren is the founder. He transformed his childhood fascination with octopuses into a global nonprofit. There are over 1 million followers of Octonation worldwide, and it is a fantastic website. I highly recommend you check it out. It's both accessible and accurate. Warren actually like dives into the latest research, reading like scientific papers and sharing them with the with the world. I think Warren, you've done an amazing job spreading marine animal literacy through this program. And I actually like referenced Octonation to like double check some facts while I was working on my drawing guide yesterday. So it's a great service you're doing here, and I'm really pleased to have you join us tonight. So everyone, please welcome Warren Carlyle.
Yay. Okay, man. Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm so excited to be here, so excited for this launch. This is really exciting to me because, and I'll get into the story of Octonation. I have a whole presentation to share, so why don't I just get into it before I just start talking? And let me know if you can see everything okay. Are we good? Because we are in the golden age of octopus. This past year, I was able to go with Sy, and we went on this book tour. She wrote Secrets of the Octopus, and she asked me to write the species profiles in the back. But I'll tell you kind of like the full circle moment, and just kind of how Octonation started, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who could still start a version of Octonation for themselves and their own special interest. And I kind of wanted to use this time in this presentation to kind of extend the invite to you to start your own community and really find a belonging. And so I just wanted to tell you kind of the story of Octonation. This was me when I was a kid, and I discovered octopuses for the first time. I'm middle of 7 children, so often forgot. Um, and was diagnosed really early on with, I had a speech impediment. I had, diagnosed with ADHD, autism. And so I had all these special interests when I was a kid, and that all kind of stopped when I walked into a aquarium and I saw an octopus moving around the exhibit, and I could tell that it was looking at me, and that it was considering me just as I was looking at it. And the only relationship that I had to compare it to at the time, obviously, was I had a dog, and I am a huge dog person, and just how when your dog looks at you and it needs something or it wants something, you're just like, oh, do you want to go outside? Or do you want to go? I'm sorry if your dog jumped up and ran outside right now. Do you want to eat? Do you want whatever? And you can kind of, after a certain amount of time, kind of like judge and figure out what does it need? Does it want to go outside? And so I had this sort of connection, and I was like, I wonder if anybody else, has this connection too. And so I didn't really know what to do with my obsession. Because there wasn't that many resources. I went to the library, and there was some dictionaries that had octopus in it, but there was really in my library, there's really nothing. And so it was kind of like this open loop. And if you know anybody who's neurodivergent and who has like an open loop with something, it's like this, it's like you feel uncomfortable with it. And so I would tell people that, octopus was my favorite animal. And I didn't really know what to do with the obsession, though. So I would just talk about them. I ended up, majoring in classical saxophone performance. That was a whole obsession. And then I moved that obsession to being a studio manager for a celebrity fashion photographer in New York. And I think it was in New York when I kind of realized, when it came to marketing and fashion and how they can reverse engineer the relevancy of cloth through branding and marketing and advertising, that I thought, wait a minute, I could take the thing that I love, the octopus, and maybe I could create and manufacture relevancy, or by using the octopus. And luckily enough, that's when Soul of an Octopus came out. It was like it was meant to be. I was looking for a book on octopus, and I was like, lo and behold, I read this book. And a couple pages in, if any of you, you can say in the chat if you've read this book. Um, if any of you have read it, she talks about how one of her friends said the octopus was a monster. And I remember thinking, no, it's not a monster. And I remember being a kid and constantly being misunderstood with all of my special interests. And I think it was at this time where I was just like, nobody's talking about it in the way that I would want to read about it. And I was like, so if I'm not seeing it, maybe I need to create it. Maybe I, and very similar to the Octopolis, like I'm sure Sam will maybe talk about it later, but it was just something he was like, I feel like this should exist, and I want to put this out into the world, and I'm so glad he did. But with Sy, she became my mentor, and I really became obsessed with how she could write. I mean, she writes like 5 or 6 books a year, but it feels like she has the ability to make people fall in love with an animal that they hadn't even considered yet. And she does this with all of her books, and I thought that's what I want to do with my writing. And so I would read her writing and be like, how do I parrot that and make people in the comment section of the post go, this is the first time I've ever heard this before, no one's quite explained this like this, now I finally get it. That's what I was kind of like optimizing for. But in the beginning, I didn't really have anybody except myself. So my logo was the octopus emoji in the world. Then one of my friends drew this thing, and then one of my other friends, Alfredo, drove this, and it became this community thing where people started sending me things. I created a Facebook group, and I would started collecting things, and I became like this hoarder of just like all this octopus stuff. And I would have conversations with people all around the world, and it just took off. Like, I don't think I expected it to take off in the way that it did, where people were like, finally, a place where we can discuss an animal that we love. And then luckily, I remember being on Instagram Live one day, and Chris was drawing an octopus, and I remember chatting back. I think it was me and like 2 other people on the live. And I kept going back and forth with him to be like, do you know that octopuses, they don't have tentacles, they have arms? Do you know that the pupils are like horizontal, they're not circular? And he's like, who is this guy like making fun of my art? Like, what is happening here? And then afterwards, I messaged him, and I was just like, sorry, it's autism, but I'd love to chat sometime. And so we got on the phone, and I think we chatted for like 3 or 4 hours. Like, we hit it off in a big way, and we became inseparable, which is great. And then I met Chelsea, who's actually in the chat. She's the Octo girl. And she would read my writing, and she'd be like, like, I appreciate where you're going with this, but there's not research on that, or this is that. She's like, you could say it like this. And she became very quickly a fast friend, and then turned into Octonation's, science advisor. And we've done so much cool stuff together. I've been on the news, been, just talking about it. But then we started having to develop programming, because I kind of viewed myself as like the Netflix of like octopus content. I was like, okay, what do we do? And like, and I say this to say that you are no different than me. I have ideas for things, and I'm just like even this event tonight, you can create an event, and if there's something specific that you want to talk about, like get 5 people to come, get 10 people to come, and really geek out with them. And so I would just reach out to people. And I was kind of afraid in the beginning, where I was like, who am I to reach out to like Brian Kessinger, who's a Disney animator? But he was like, I'd love to do it. I love octopus. Sy Montgomery. Again, the people in this community have been so incredible to work with and share their love. I developed Interview with an Octopus, where I'd go to various aquariums all around. And this was something that I just created off the top of my head, and walked into aquariums and was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I would really like to showcase your exhibit and maybe profile like the work that you're doing here at the aquarium. And they were like, sure. Like, who are you again? Like, and so this is what it looked like in the beginning.
Fun, guys. And
where
he knows what she's doing. She's trying to get multiple hands on me.
I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just filming my enthusiasm and going to different aquariums and meeting people, and just doing the best that I could with the tools that I had. And I did that rinse and repeat over and over and over again with different people. Met a lot of aquarists all over the world, and learned about, how people view, octopuses in captivity, and the lingo, not saying tanks, but saying exhibits, when they've, gone to great lengths to be very mindful of like developing, making sure that they have hiding places and things like that. It's not just a tank, it's, you know, an exhibit. And there's so many things that I learned along the way.
At the Denver Aquarium, we are with Colton. He's about to meet a giant Pacific octopus.
And I would do certain things like introduce kids for the first time to the octopus, which I don't know if I would recommend now because you never know what's going to happen with an octopus. But I just did it. You know, I just kind of fearlessly did it. And you can kind of see things just kind of took off. And I was just going to be like, okay, I need to create content for this community. And so I just kept creating content for this community until Meta, you know, reached out and kind of like upped the production level a lot. And I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I want to be mindful of that too. But now in the future, when I'm kind of like looking forward, I think of doing really cool things like interview with an octopus, and maybe me introducing people to an octopus for the first time could be a cool press junket. Like, you know how they have hot ones where they eat like chicken wings on, you know, whatever. But like, why couldn't Octonation do interview with an octopus and maybe introduce Galinda and Elphaba, you know, to an octopus, or, you know, Jane Goodall or Andrew Huberman? That's like kind of what I'm looking for in the future to do. But really for me, and this is might be helpful for you, is identifying some sort of belonging deficit. If you see something out there that you want to be covered, don't wait for anybody to create it. You create it yourself and go and put it out there and maybe connect. And be like, you know what, I haven't seen octopuses in comics. You know what, I haven't seen octopuses talked about in this way. I haven't seen macro photography of just octopus eyes. Like, there's so many ways that you can get involved with this community. Because there's a lot of people that, when it comes to neurodivergence, they don't understand, like, they're really looking for something specific for them. They want content that's exactly like for them. Because the more they feel like it's for them, the more they feel like they can contribute, which is why, you know, we created cephalotography, which showcases underwater photographers all around the world. We created the first ever octopus photography competition with the Explorers Club. We created one of the first, you know, octopus artists, where we do artist spotlights of people that did sculptures and art all over the world. And these were just things that I was just like, I'm just going to do it because I want to see it in the world. Then we created all these stickers of specific octopus species specific, because I'm huge on anatomical correctness. And so I sat in a group chat with Chelsea and Chris for 3 years, and we developed all of these characters. I mean, it didn't take 3 years to develop all, well, it did, but we started with French Press Freddy. And then it kind of took off from there, and people loved them. And we were like, there's a community that wants this. And so we created more and more and more. And so
Thanks, Octonation. I love my new stickers, and I'm wearing one right now.
so it's just cool to create, like I said, this community. There's Chelsea, you know, showing our stickers to Sylvia Earle, and us selling and then utilizing the money to develop and to create more research. We created Octopedia because I felt like, why isn't there a comprehensive field guide of octopus species online, written in a really fun, informative way that's accessible to people? And I was just like, okay, we'll do it. Like we just, and so I worked with Chelsea, and she did all of these species profiles, and we're still working on more. And so she did an incredible job. And so we've all kind of worked together. So when Sam is just like, you know, Warren kind of did a good job, it's really the community. Donna's written for our blog as well. She has one of the most viral, you know, blogs on our website talking about Argonauts and Paper Nautilus, because she wrote about it in a way that people were like, this is so cool. It's like Spider-Man, you know, the way that she formulates her egg casing out of her arms. It's just really neat. And so it was founded by me, but I think it became way bigger than me very quickly. And all I wanted to do is hold up a microphone to other people and say, I have the community for you to showcase your love for this animal. And that's the kind of soul that Octonation has kind of like taken on. And so I want to go through these really quickly because I know that I'm running up on time. But just to kind of get into octopuses just a little bit, because I have a couple of favorite species that you might not be familiar with. And I'm just going to go through them really quickly, but you have the blanket octopus here, who's like the Beyonce of octopuses, with this long, you know, flowing cape that has these like kind of perforated break lines that allows her to kind of like break off pieces of her cape when she's trying to escape predators. And just there's the fact that these octopuses exist in every single ocean, they're along every coastline on the planet, it really kind of plays into, Octopolis, and is just a really good playground to kind of just showcase all of these different species. And just look how incredible, like to me, these are just, I can talk about them all day, like these marvels, these animals, because I feel like there's so many people now, it's funny, now that CGI and AI is becoming a thing, they think octopuses don't exist. There's no way that this exists, right? Because you look at them and you're just like, if I've never seen this before, then this is clearly fake. But they do exist, and they've been on this planet for hundreds of millions of years. You have her egg casings. Hairy octopus is really cool. But I understand that I've been talking, for a long time, and I kind of want to get to questions, and be respectful of everyone's time, because as you know, I can talk till I'm blue in the face about these animals. But just want to open it up for questions.
Thanks, Warren.
What's
You're great on time. You're perfect.
Oh,
Um,
2 or 3 minutes.
no, no, I think you're at the time exactly. Do we have any questions from the audience? Let me just say, while people are thinking, it is really inspiring to hear your story told from this perspective. Like to me, coming into this project, like 3 years ago, roughly, to me, Octonation was like it like sprang full force. Like I saw it in its all its majesty. So like seeing how you built it up from a small community is incredibly inspiring. Something I hope to like approach as I'm like, creating more Octopolis content.
Every single
Uh,
year, I told myself I feel like we're just getting started, because there's just so many ideas, and there's so many different ways to profile them, and there's so many ways that the media gets it wrong. There's so many ways that, like, I see all this boom in media, and me and Sy said it on our press tour about the book. Like, we really feel like we're in the golden age of octopus research, and it's what's really interesting, because for people that are watching and that are tuned into Octonation, people that watch Secrets of the Octopus were just like, I feel like I've seen all these behaviors before, but it's because you were so tuned into Octonation, and we've been profiling these behaviors that they're just now doing research on for the first time and just putting science behind them. And so it's really fun to kind of see, they're like, wow, finally people are paying more attention to it. And it's been fun to see the uptick of more media. I think a new Disney kind of like a thing just came out for Christmas, the holidays. I think it's called The Boy and the Octopus or something. So we're seeing a whole lot more. So I'm so excited to see how it continues to grow.
it really does feel like octopuses are having a moment. Um, Sarah asks, do you have a favorite like fun fact about octopuses?
My favorite fun fact, and I say this all the time, is just I'm obsessed with their eyes, and I have been ever since I caught a glimpse of one, and it followed me around. And there's just something so mystical, magical, like looking into a universe of something and just understanding that they've been here, like that we're like humans are a blip on the radar. And that's why I think I love Octopolis so much, is because you kind of look at, like, clearly we're not long for this world, and octopuses will still be here, and they're going to be figuring things out. And I've thought that all along. Every single time people told me, why did you create Octonation? Are you trying to save the octopuses? I was like, they don't need saving. We need saving. They don't need saving. They're good. They've figured this thing out. We're the ones that need to get along better and kind of like figure out our own stuff. If only thing, like, we should take notes from the octopus on their resiliency, their adaptability, their problem solving. Like, there's just so many symbolic things that I feel like, we could talk forever about. Yeah, so, but my favorite fun fact, going back to what you said, is their eyes, and the fact that they nearly have no blind spot. So the fact that they can see nearly 360 degrees around their head to protect themselves against predators is something that I just, like, I always tell kids, like, imagine having like 2 panoramic cameras on the sides of your heads, or your head, and it's like you can't sneak up on an octopus. Like, they've truly managed to kind of figure that part out. And so I could look and stare in an octopus's eyes all day, and I have at Aquarium of the Pacific, at New England Aquarium, when I saw an octopus for the first time in the wild with Chelsea. I was just like, damn my lungs, like, why do I have to breathe? Like, I just wish I could stay down here and just like be with this octopus. And so yeah, it was just so rewarding.
Yeah, I think they are an animal that just the more you know about them, the more you become fascinated. The gift that just keeps on giving. Natalia asks, "What's one memorable experience you have like with an octopus? Direct interaction."
Um, I've had, I mean, like, Jesse was mentioning they all have different personalities, so you really never know what you're going to get. And so, sometimes when I remember when Octonation was kind of blowing up and more news organizations wanted to go to various aquariums with me and showcase the octopus, you really couldn't say if the octopus was going to come out or not. And there's this one time where I came in with a complete film crew and the octopus was just not having it. And it was just like, well, they're like, make him do something. I'm like, that's not how this works. Like, so, that day, was canceled. Obviously, next day we came back but it's just all the various experiences. And I think the connection that, Aquarius have, we created a rule in Octonation that Aquarius on the front line of ocean conservation on a daily basis, they often do thankless work. And they're so committed to taking care, like just hearing, Jesse's passion about the enrichment and things like that, that inspire every single time I would have a conversation with each one, it would inspire me to be like, I want to do better. I want to do more. I want to, so every single time I leave a conversation with somebody that cares so deeply about an animal, I'm just like, yeah, we're all on the right path together. So yeah.
Totally, that's beautiful. All right. Let's see. Okay, we got one more question. Let's see. Okay, Chicago Seb. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your username correctly. Chicago. What kind of things do octopuses like to do to play around and have fun? Do you have any anecdotes about octopus play?
So yeah, I've learned, because I like to write and I like to write about play and things like that. And I'm very quickly, reached out to by peers that have they're like, the research hasn't been quite done on that. But what I can say is that, you can see videos of octopuses like blowing around things. Like I think there's that latest the one that Barack Obama narrated where the octopus is kind of like using its siphon and blasting things away. And I think they also use that at some points, not just to keep things away, but also maybe when they get bored, just to kind of move things around in their environment. They use it to kind of like clean, like you'll see coconut octopuses like cleaning off debris off their shells and cleaning their dens, or they clean their room or whatever. They obviously don't want their den to be a place where predators join around. And so sometimes like if they're done finished eating something, they'll like stilt walk, and then they'll blast off whatever prey remains that they have and then go back so that they don't attract anything into their den. So I'm not too sure if all that stuff is necessarily play, but I think, with octopus, you kind of have to redefine what you think about everything. I don't know. I don't try not to look at it from too much of like a human lens. I just like kind of look at their behaviors. I'm like, that's interesting. They're obviously doing that because that works for them, and that's worked for them. So I don't know about the word play.
Yeah, I mean, I love that that works for them. Play, I mean,
Mhm.
especially when you're trying to like be scientifically accurate. That's such a subjective term, right? I mean, like I think a lot of what I've read is that it's kind of like we don't really know necessarily like what play is. Like, how do you define it? It's kind of like an emergent property of intelligence.
So
Um,
I would most definitely like, because when I was on the press tour with her, she's like, she'll talk about them like they're squishy puppy dogs. So she has no problem like going in and being like, yeah, they totally play with me, and like they enjoy, my company. And it's very much like that's the relationship that she has with animals. And I'm always curious. I'm just like, would they be doing this if they were in the out, But it's just so interesting, the relationships that you can form. I mean, you saw it making contact, with Professor David Scheel, and that seemingly the octopus would watch TV with them. So, we really, are just now learning and just now kind of like observing and seeing what, the octopus has to teach us. So I'm really excited about it.
Warren, thank you so much.